Thanks very much, Frank. It's wonderful to be here. Can I firstly acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the Wurundjeri people, and pay my respects to their elders both past and present. Can I also acknowledge the New South Wales Commissioner of Police, Andrew Scipione, attending in his capacity as a member of the Australia-New Zealand Policing Advisory Agency and Director of the Australian Institute of Criminology, Adam Thomason, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for this opportunity to address the Young People Risk and Resilience Conference. And before I get into any of my views, can I congratulate the Victorian Safe Communities Network and the Australian Institute of Criminology for organising this very important event. It may go without saying that young people are valued by our community. Most are valued by their families, their schools, their communities, and are on a clear pathway of personal growth where they contribute to national prosperity. But we know in this room that there are some young people that are not so lucky. When we look at the current statistics, they present a bleak outlook for a significant proportion of young Australians. Currently, juveniles, that is between 10 and 17 years old, are offending at the highest rate since 1996-97, at 4,218 per 100,000 of the juvenile population. The rate of female juvenile offenders has increased by 15% over the last 2 years. In Queensland, of all individuals born in 1983-84, 14% of them came into contact with the criminal justice system as juveniles, and alarmingly, of this age group, 62% of Indigenous males came into contact with the police as juveniles. While their crimes tend to be of the less serious variety, young people are consistently overrepresented as offenders in all jurisdictions. And this disturbing trend has contributed to sustained community concern about juvenile offending. This data provides a distinct contrast to the pattern of adult offenders, which has been declining at the rate of 3% per year over the last 3 years. So we must ask ourselves, why the difference? Why is it that youth crime is increasing, and how do we tackle these issues and how to achieve long-term and sustainable improvement? Governments of all persuasions and all levels provide resources to ensure that struggling families are supported and housed, children are educated, health education is provided, and training and job opportunities are made available. We are now more aware of critical developmental milestones of young people, and researchers and policymakers act on this knowledge to devise interventions accordingly. Yet, as the statistics I described indicate, too many young people are caught in the criminal justice system. Although many young people who have such contact go on to become law-abiding adults, indeed the majority do, a small core offends repeatedly and become career criminals. In some cases, young people's families have been involved in crime for generations. A recent article in the Canberra Times showed police reports indicating that 12 Canberra families were responsible for 1/4 of all property crime in the ACT. Sensibly, the Federal Police are determined to intervene and work closely with the families involved to tackle this intergenerational issue. I know the participants at this conference all work in one capacity or another to reduce risks to young Australians and to ensure that those who do come into contact with the criminal justice system are dealt with so that their experience is not one that will increase the likelihood of reoffending. Important work is also being undertaken to ensure that when risky behaviour, such as drug taking or dangerous driving occur, intervention follows by way of therapeutic or education programs without the issue progressing through the courts. But what more can we and should we be doing? Last July, I was pleased to launch the National Youth Policing Model to address youth violence and antisocial behaviour. This model was endorsed by all states and territories. Police and justice agencies worked together to identify 6 national strategies for tackling youth crime and antisocial behaviour, which were targeted policing to areas of greatest need, strong responses to alcohol and drug abuse to reduce access, strong enforcement of road rules to reduce young people's involvement in road trauma, early intervention and diversion strategies, collaboration and information sharing among justice, health, education and human services, and education and awareness for young people about safety, legal rights and responsibilities. Within those strategies, state, territory and federal policing and crime prevention initiatives are proving successful in preventing youth crime and antisocial behaviour in Australia. And these programs, of course, can be replicated around the country. And I've got a number of examples. Here in Victoria, the Youth Justice Intensive Ball Supervision Pilot Program has been developed for those young people who come into contact with the Children's Court. The program provides support primarily to young men aged between 15 and 18 years who appear before Children's Court and who are at immediate risk of remand. These young people between the age of 15 and 18 are targeted due to their high numbers in youth justice remand in recent years. The program aims to divert them from remand and future involvement in the criminal justice system and provides intensive bail supervision services in an effort to divert them from being sentenced to remand or from reoffending. But programs also need to target the underlying causes of youth crime. One such program is the new Youth Support Service. This service targets 10 to 18-year-olds and will operate across metropolitan Melbourne and in regional centres such as Ballarat, Geelong and Shepparton. As part of the $22 million Youth Support Service, 35 youth workers based in 8 community centres, in 8 community service organisations, will provide outreach, early intervention and diversion services to assist young people achieve better life outcomes. Victoria Police will identify and refer at-risk young people to the Youth Support Service in their local area. Another, the SCAR program, is a key service component of the Youth Support Service. It is a cognitive behaviour therapy delivered one-on-one to eligible young people, those referred by Victoria Police for carrying or using a controlled or prohibited weapon. The therapy sessions deal with an individual's motivation for carrying weapons and ways of deflecting this behaviour. In Queensland, there have also been positive developments since the endorsement of the youth policing model. The Queensland Government is piloting a Drink Safe Precincts program to counter alcohol-related violence in Queensland's entertainment areas. 3 Drink Safe Precincts have been established in Brisbane's Fortitude Valley, the Gold Coast and Townsville, with increased police numbers during peak times, better supervised taxi zones, more support services and the creation of special safe zones. Legislation has also been introduced to provide a wide range of banning orders to restrict people from licensed premises and their vicinity to reduce the level of alcohol-related violence and behaviour. Alcohol-related violence around pubs and clubs was analysed by the New South Wales Bureau of Crime Statistics and showed that more than half the assaults in the Sydney CBD occurred within 50 metres of a liquor outlet. Though age demographics were not included in this analysis, the report found that each additional alcohol outlet per hectare in the Sydney local government area will result on average in 4.5 additional assaults per annum. In the Indigenous justice sphere, Cherbourg Police Division is considering introducing police rangers as a youth-based initiative to work with young people aged between 12 and 18 years in this rural Indigenous community. This would be similar to the program operating in Western Australia, South Australia and the Northern Territory, which has shown to be effective. The Coordinated Response to Young People at Risk, or CRIPAR program, is a whole-of-government initiative in partnership with Xstrata Coal Queensland. This aims to assist young people in addressing issues which are often identified as contributing factors in the development of criminal and self-harming tendencies and antisocial behaviour. Xstrata is providing $5 million over 3 years for a statewide expansion of CRIPAR and the creation of SupportLink, an e-referral pathway which supports the management of all referrals. In addition, police will now be able to link clients to victim support counselling, support for parents, support following suicide, road trauma support, drug and alcohol support and elder abuse support. Many of the primary social support services within Queensland are now working with police to receive referrals sent by officers via the SupportLink referral system. Now, I believe this is a great example of the public and private sectors coming together to address common concerns. In the ACT, there is extensive new work being done between the ACT Policing Drug and Alcohol Diversion Team and the ACT Health's Alcohol and Drug Program. For example, the ACT Police Liaison Team is engaged at all major regional events where youth are likely to attend. During the Australia Day celebrations, underage drinking and antisocial youth behaviour was targeted and 82 young persons were apprehended by police and referred to the Early Intervention Pilot Program. ACT Policing has also developed and commenced the implementation of ACT Policing Alcohol Diversion Program for young people. Now that's where the team is being beefed up with more personnel who will be responsible for educating police recruits and existing members to promote awareness of the diversionary programs. The positions are also responsible for assisting the ACT Department of Education and Training to draft and deliver drug and alcohol education to school students in the ACT, which has been a long-standing program. And over 100 sworn police members have received team training in alcohol diversion program. Beyond these worthy initiatives, our interest in supporting young people informs the federal government's approach more broadly. For example, in the area of employment services, Job Services Australia provides not only work experience and training to young job seekers, but also dedicates more resources than ever before on non-vocational services such as mentoring and counselling. A whole-of-government approach is required in this area of public policy. Clearly then, significant work is being undertaken to target critical risk areas for our young people. Not just because we want to end the violence, the antisocial behaviour and the criminal conduct, but so that we can turn lives around, so we can have more contributors and fewer detractors in our communities. It is, of course, in everyone's interest that we succeed in this goal. As the Justice Minister, I am heartened by the response of the Australian Federal Police and state governments and their respective law enforcement agencies in taking up the challenge of the national youth policing model. As we can see from the data, we need to focus on our young people to ensure that we have the best possible programs, and indeed I've already outlined a number that I believe are working well and indeed are a step towards realising this very achievable aspiration. Finally, can I wish you all the very well in your considerations, deliberations over the course of this conference. I think we need to have more occasions like this where people come together to focus on what we can do in our community to reduce the likelihood of young people following that wrong path. As outlined in a recent AIC paper, and I quote, it says, and I quote, "Research consistently indicates that while most juveniles grow out of crime, they do so at different rates. Importantly, for researchers and policymakers, a small proportion of juveniles continue offending well into adulthood and have repeated contact with the criminal justice system and are responsible for a disproportionate amount of crime." I think those words are apt for the matters that you're going to be considering over the course of this conference. And what I really do believe is that our ongoing challenge, therefore, is to make this an ever smaller proportion of offenders. I believe that's a worthy goal. I believe it's achievable, and I wish you all the very best in your considerations of these important matters. Thank you very much.